All right, now that we have Proxmox up and going, it is fully booted, sitting right beside my switch, my desktop PC, and I am ready to start configuring everything to get internet out here to the shop. So in that last segment, we talked about having to set a static IP address for this project, and that is true because everything that I read about NethSecurity, it is all set up to do DHCP out of the box, and it is assuming that you'll have either a DHCP server, or B, that your ISP is providing IP addresses to your house. Well, in my case, that is not true. I host everything myself. I do my own DHCP server in the house right now with the Dream Machine, so I don't have one. I've always relied on them to provide IP addresses to my network. So in this case, we're going to have to do a little extra configuring. Like I said, in order to get to this box, we're going to have to statically assign this desktop an IP address, and I'm going to keep this in sequential order. So we're going .1 is the gateway, .2 is Proxmox, and .3 will be this desktop PC for right now. So let's get that set up so we can actually access it. And before we get started, just to show you that I cannot ping the Proxmox, and we will do a -T for continuous ping. That way you can see this happen in real time. So let's right click on our network icon, go to network and settings here, Ethernet. Let's change this from DHCP to manual. Turn on IPv4, and we'll set the IP address to .3, and we'll give it the same subnet mask. Here you don't have to worry about the gateway because you're technically not routing anything out to the internet. So this is all internal traffic. So in this case, you do not have to set the gateway. So let's hit save. And we should see this general failure go to replies. So there we go. Now we can ping the Proxmox box. So let's get over to it. Let's close this out, and we're going to stop the ping, and we'll clear the screen for our next part. All right, so let's go to the IP address of the Proxmox. All right, so we're here at the login screen. As you remember, the username is root, and the default password that you just set, whatever you set it, this is where you'll enter to get into the web interface. So let's go to root, type in our password. All right, so here's one of the first annoyances I want to tell you about and how to get rid of it. Yes, Proxmox is free to the public, but Proxmox would really love for you to subscribe to their enterprise level support. And if you don't want to, this message will continue to show up until you get rid of it. Now, there are tons of videos out there that say 10 steps or 10 things you need to do to Proxmox before you begin. We're going to kind of cover some of the basic ones in this video, but if you wish, I will link one that I like that shows you all 10 steps that you need to do in order to get rid of Proxmox or make Proxmox more, I guess, either user-friendly or more efficient, whatever you want to call it. So let's start off with this basic one. So let's get rid of this no valid subscription. So how do we do that? I found this video. I'm not taking credit for it at all. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. His is all command line based. So you have to do just a little work in that. And it's really simple. There's nothing to it. He walks you step by step. If you want to watch the video, Lord, his disable notification layout in the description is actually all you really need. But nonetheless, you have two options. You can do it here in the shell command line, or you can actually terminal in, and that is what I'm going to do. So we're going to do SSH root at the IP address of the Proxmox. So you would be prompted, if you haven't done this before, to trust the certificate that it just passed to your machine. And all you would do is type yes and YES all the way spelled out, and then hit enter, and then you would enter your password. But since I have been in this before, the certificate is already stored and we are ready to roll. All right, so his first step is you need to CD into this folder right here. And then you need to make a backup copy. I've already done this. I guess I should have probably deleted the backup copy, but we'll go ahead and do this again because it just overwrites it. So we have made a copy. So if we do ls, we can see that we have the original Proxmox lib.js and the backup file. The one we're going to edit is the original. All right. So in his next set of instructions, we're going to search for if res is equal, and we will put that in, and we'll hit enter. And it brings us to this line of code that we need to change. So let's go to the end, and we will backspace everything from active all the way through, all the way up to the if statement, and we will put false in its place. All right, so we're going to do Control X, and we're going to write it from the buffer to the file. So that step is complete. Well, the next step is you need to be able to update your Proxmox box. And there's a couple of things that you need to do in order to change that. It's just a couple more command line options. So we're going to CD back into the root folder, and we're going to go to this next step. And again, I'll link this all in the description. So the first file you want to modify is the pventerprise.list file. So this will give you the option to be able to receive updates via the no subscription, and Proxmox will continue to warn you that this is not for production use. Do not use it. It's a warning, but you do get security updates, which are very important. So if there's a security flaw in Proxmox and you have this publicly exposed, you can get your stuff patched. But they do warn that these are not vetted and fully tested in updates because, again, they want you to buy the subscription. So that's their business model. But so far, every time I've used Proxmox, I've never had any problem with it, and we're going to do it just as these instructions say. So instead of going into it, we're actually going to nano right into that because he has the file already listed. So nano in that file path, and then we're going to comment out the first line, go to the end of that, and then we're going to copy and paste this line in. And then we're going to do Control S. We'll write it from buffer to that file again. Perfect. We're going to copy this here and nano here. And we'll again comment out this line, put it in here. And then we will put in the new path for the no subscription. And Control X. Write it from buffer to that file. Yes. Okay. Now we're going to do our restart in this first set of instructions. So what this is doing is not actually restarting the whole machine, is actually just reloading all the configuration files for Proxmox. And before we do that, let's make sure we log out. And we'll go ahead and close it for good measure, so we won't see that warning. All right, we have successfully ran those two commands, so we should be able to go back into it. And when we log in, we should no longer see that warning. Perfect. We no longer see the warning that we don't have a valid subscription. And if we go to the update repository, we see the warning that this the no subscription repository is not recommended for production use. Again, the fair warning to you guys, if you choose to use this, make sure you make a backup of your Proxmox. All right, next step I want you to do is go to the user right here under the drop down, go to multi-factor or two-factor authentication. Click add and do a TOTP. If you don't have the app set up, Microsoft has a good one. I can't think of the other name of the other one. Nonetheless, there are multiple multi-factor authentication apps that will allow you to set this up. I'm not going to do this in this recording because it spits up a QR code and I don't feel like trying to blur that out, but I will have this set up. All right, the next step is, in this machine, I have multiple disks, and I am going to eventually do a ZFS pool because I have 3 small SSDs that I'm going to use to store my VMs on. And, but being this is a hardware raid and I'm trying to get this video finished for this week, we're just going to create a simple LVM for right now with one of those disks. So let's go to our instance disk LVM, create a volume group. We're going to select the largest drive for right now, and we're going to simply call it VM. Okay, we're done. So the reason being that I'm doing this is because I don't want anything stored on the PVE where Proxmox is stored, basically. I just want it to be Proxmox only, and then everything else resides somewhere. So all the VMs to go on the SSDs. All right, so on to the next steps. We got Proxmox basically up and running. It is in its simplest form. There's nothing special about this, but this is enough to get us internet access to our shop really quick. All right, so NethSecurity is kind of an interesting beast. It is a spin-off part of the Neth server, and Neth server is a way more complex topic to get into. From what I read, it is an all-in-one type deal. It has mail servers. It has, oh gosh, what else? It includes NethSecurity, of course, but it is like an all-in-one Linux server. It has all kinds of different stuff, and it's all web-based. I really think I'm going to explore it to see what it's like. It is open source. It is free. They do have a paid subscription model, just like a lot of them do for support. But all we're going to use in this video is NethSecurity. It has a lot of cool stuff. And one thing that during my trying to figure out how this works, and you guys remember I talked about it relying on DHCP, is that it is actually built on the OpenWRT standard, or the operating system. So it's very small, very light. All they did was strip the UI for the OpenWRT off and put their web interface on it, and probably done some extra work to it because it looks very robust. It seems very user friendly. So they do give you an option here on how to install it on Proxmox. And before we get going, and I probably should have warned you, is before you take down your network, you need to go in and click on, if you click on this link, it will download the image for you. You need to have that available because if you're like me, you now have no internet in your home and you're trying to get it back up and going. So you want to have this pre-downloaded, and we need to use WinSCP to upload this to our Proxmox instance. Yes, you could probably do it through command line, but WinSCP is just as easy to use, and you can transfer that file right to the root user's home folder. So let's open up WinSCP real quick. All right. So we have WinSCP up. We're going to go to our Proxmox host, and we'll type in root. Oops, sorry. And our password to our Proxmox instance. Hope I typed that right. I did. And I'm going to delete this. This is where I was testing, guys, but I will go ahead and delete it so we can follow through all of it. Not rename. Delete. Okay. So we have that file deleted. So if we go to the root folder and let's clear out this screen, ls, you can see that there's nothing there. And let's open up our downloads. Bring this over. And we're going to grab this one that we downloaded from NethSecurity. And it is uploaded. So let's close all this down. And let's run an ls again, and we can see that the file is there. So let's clear out our screen. And this is very small, guys. This image is just 300 megabytes, so it's not very big at all. All right, so the first command we're going to copy is this one to create the VM. And I've been back and forth on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I did to make this go quicker. Is from this point on, I take out everything all the way up to the memory. All right. And I had some issues with that. I've got to go back and explore why when I did EN01 and EN02 in place of the net 0 and the net 1 that it didn't work. But for time's sake, we're going to get this going. So I know I want to give this more than 1 gig of RAM. I'm going to give it 4096, and we're going to give it 4 cores because I am going to be doing some deep packet inspection with this and threat protection, and I want it to have more than 1 gig of memory. All right, so let's kind of break it down what it's doing in this command. So it's creating and giving the machine an ID of 401. You could do whatever you want to do. If you want to do 101 or 100, that is fine. It just, I guess 401, in case you have machines already running, it is on up there in the identity. And then it gives a name of NethSecurity, OS type of L26, and again, 4 cores and 4 gigs of memory, and it creates the SCSI hardware stuff for the virtual machine. So let's go to our Proxmox instance, and we should be able to see, once we run this command, a new VM spin up. Okay, so there's our VM. We'll give it another second to turn from the question mark and name it. Okay, we got the name. Let's move on to the next step, which was to upload, which we did. We used WinSCP to get this image to that. Now we're going to extract that image. And once it's done extracting, we should be able to run ls, and we see that it extracted it okay, and the GZ is .gz is now removed from it. So now we have our image file. Now we need to import this image to a disk. So we're going to copy this command out. And this is where some stuff is going to change. As you remember, I want to store my VMs into a separate location, and I created a LVM called VM. So we have to change that name so it will store it correctly. So here at the very end, you see that it's going to local-LVM. We need to change that just to VM. So we go VM, and it should import this disk, and we'll go check that here in just a second. Okay, we should be able to come to Proxmox, go to VMs, VM disk, and now we see that it has imported the disk. Go back to here. We'll clear out our screen one more time. Go back to installation. We're going to attach this to the virtual machine. We'll just copy this right out. And we do have to make a small change here as well, where it says local-VM. We can just take all that out and leave VM and do that. And it should set that as the disk. We should be able to come back over here to our NethSecurity hardware. And now you see we have the disk attached. All right. So we got the disk attached, set up the boot order. We'll copy that. We don't have to change anything here. It's updated it. And now we're actually ready to start the machine. So before we get started on that, there's a couple things we need to do. Let's go back here, network, and I'm going to delete these because this is where I was testing. And we'll delete this one. All right, and apply config. All right, good. So I forgot to do that part, and now we're going to recreate those. I wanted you to see this step by step. So let's create a new Linux bridge, and we're going to tie it to N01 or 0 or 01, I'm sorry. And we're not going to assign it any IP addresses at all. And we're going to click create. Oh, hang on, create. And if this is your LAN port, which I'm pretty sure EN01 is, I have to double check. You may want to make that VLAN aware. That way, if you're passing VLAN traffic, you will be able to do that successfully. So let's create one more bridge, and we're going to call, and we're going to do NN02 because that's our second network port. We'll say this is our WAN network port, and you could rename these, I believe, to what you want. You could call it WAN and LAN if you wanted to. So that is great. Now let's go back to here. Here, please. Hardware. Now let's add our networking to our VM. All right. So we have everything in line where we need it, and we can probably boot this machine up now. Nope. You know what I forgot to do? Don't forget to apply the configuration. There we go. So everything is good. Now we are ready to apply, or ready to start it up. So let's start it up. So like I was saying, this part is relying on DHCP, and I'll show you why. I think the Neth server actually defaults to 192.168.1.1. But this does not. I never could get to it, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So let's bring this screen back up. All right, so the default login is root and capital NETHESIS, comma 1234. Let's clear the screen out. All right. So we can run ifconfig. And as you can see on the bridge, there's no IP address, and on either 0 and 1, there are no IP addresses either. So you cannot get to this box. There's no way. You can't even ping. I tried setting up everything on the 1.1 and never could get to it. So this is what I found out about NethSecurity. It is based on the OpenWRT operating system, and they, like I said, they put their web interface on top of it, made it look shiny, new, very intuitive. And there is a way to set a static IP address on this. So if we cd into /etc and config, and we do an ls, we see that there's a network folder or network file here. This is actually what we're going to configure. With this version, there is no nano, so you have to use vi. So let's vi the network file. And this is our interface and how we config them. I hate that it's like this. I wish it would give you an option to set this. I wish there was a setup stage. That is my only complaint. If they would, and I could be wrong. I could be completely missing something, but I tried for hours and a couple of days, it's more than that, been a couple of days to try to get this to work. And of course, when I say a couple of days, guys, I'm not talking about I spent 2 solid days on it. I spent 2 days in and out of my busy life trying to figure out how this works. And once I figured out it was OpenWRT, it was fairly simple. I went to their website and got all the instructions on how to do this. But they don't openly say until you start digging into their documentation that it is based on WRT. I'm going to quit saying open, but WRT. So let's go down and to this. Well, let's go to insert, and we're going to change this to static on our LAN interface. And we're going to add an option of netmask. And make sure you spell everything right too, because that has been an issue of mine. I'd get so frustrated. It was late last night when I was finally getting a chance to come back out here. And we're going to do, and I misspelled something, and I was so aggravated when I pointed it out to myself. IP ADDR, IP adder of 192.168.40.1, and we will close that out. So what we're doing is we're setting it to static instead of DHCP, and right now we're going to leave the WAN interface. If I wanted to, it kind of doesn't make sense not to go ahead and do it. You know, I guess I could. Let's just see if it works. We're going to live work this one out. And I may pause the video while I get this all going. No, let's do it in the web interface. Let's do it that way. That way you can see it. All right, so let's hit escape to get out of insert mode, and we're going to do :WQ to write the file. And you can see it has written 406 bytes to it. And let's just reboot. But, you know, I guess while we're waiting on this, well, why did I do this project? Well, it's because I wanted to try something out. What is life like outside of Ubiquiti? I've told you in several of my videos, I'm a Ubiquiti fanboy. I love their products. But what other open source software out there is that can compare to it or maybe even be better? I want to explore those options. You know, that's where I want to get more technical about this stuff. I've enjoyed doing this. Has it been a little frustrating? Yes, on my part. I don't ever claim to be the smartest guy, but I do love sitting down and learning new things, and this is one of them that has been a pretty good little challenge. So let's log into this thing again. All right, let's do an if config again. And we see that we have our IP address now tied to our bridge. So hopefully we should be able to bring up command prompt, and let's see if we can ping the default gateway now. And I cannot. What did I type wrong? Oh, there it goes. It's pinging. It just took it a little bit to come up. Sorry, guys. Okay. So we can successfully ping our NethSecurity box. So let's see if we can get to it. Watch it make a liar out of me. And the default port for this is 9090. Awesome. So we're getting so close. Again, this is root, and awesome. We're into the box. It looks very good. I love their web interface from what I've played with it so far. It does have security. It has DPI filter, threat shield, flash start filter. I'm not 100% sure what all this stuff does. You can see our usage of memory, the root usage. I want to even say it shows, maybe it doesn't. I thought it showed the actual how much processor, how many cores it has, but I don't, maybe I'm wrong. So let's go to interfaces. So you see we have two interfaces. We have our LAN and our WAN interface. Again, guys, this requires you to have two network cards in your either Proxmox or on the PC that you're trying to use. So we have our two. Now let's go to our DNS and DHCP. So we need to get this assigning some DHCP to our shop, and we need to go here and we need to edit. We need to enable. We need to set our distributing range. So I'm going to start at 10. That gives me, it'll give me what, 8 more IP addresses that I can statically assign without them being why am I changing that? Without them being, having overlapping IP addresses. And I'm going to change that from 12 to 8. Save. And then you always want to click unsaved changes. So you want to click that every time you make a change and then hit apply changes. So we now see that we have our active DHCP server going, and let's go to DNS, because don't forget to do that like I did one time. And we'll add another one, fell over, and there probably are some better DNS servers to point to, but these are quick and easy to get going. And save. Again, unsave changes, apply. And we should be able to get an IP address from this machine. So let's go to network, edit, DHCP, save. All right, it looks like we got an IP address. Let's see if we can still get into this box. Good to go. Let's go to our dynamic leases. We see that there's 3 devices that are already grabbed an IP address from this. Our production switch has now got one. Our Yolink device is up and going. Now we have to get internet out here. So let's go back to interface and devices, and let's edit our WAN interface. So I'm going to pause this while I enter this, and then that way I can blur out the other part of my public IP address. But before we do, make sure if you are like me, you need to make sure you select static and not DHCP. All right, I have successfully entered my public IP address. Let's open command prompt, and we'll clear this out, and we'll do a ipconfig/release, and then we will do a renew. Hang on just a second. I guarantee I typed something backwards. Hang on. Okay, I did. I typed it backwards. I did it all the time. I can't get out of my brain that it's not that. Renew. All right, guys. So we now have internet out in the shop. Everything is working. We should be able to ping google.com. And we can. So we have successfully set up NethSecurity. This has been an interesting journey from getting this machine Proxmox up and going, figuring out that I had to do this all statically, to actually getting the 10 gig card to work. It was an adventure. In the next video, we're actually going to be exploring what is NethSecurity. What can we do with it? I mean, it looks very promising. I mean, from everything from the interface, DHCP routes, multi-WAN, so you could have failover, firewall, port 40, NAT rules. It even has a reverse proxy in it. So where was that at? Where did I see reverse proxy? Yeah, reverse proxy. And it does Let's Encrypt as well. So guys, could this be the actual replacement for Ubiquiti? I have no idea, but I'm really excited to see what NethSecurity can do for my shop network. And I guess that's all I've got in this one. And guys, we will see you in the next set of videos. Again, we'll be exploring NethSecurity. And guys, remember, keep on DIYing.